It's been a busy week. Here are some of today's top headlines. 18,000 flights were grounded worldwide. Banks went offline and the Las Vegas Sphere got the blue screen of death. The culprit? A Windows update for the cybersecurity program CrowdStrike. So don't be surprised if you see that in an Apple commercial. The Biden family is in negotiations with the Democrat Party to soft land Joe Biden's re-election bid exit, according to NBC News, who's reporting the first family felt disrespected by the way that fellow Democrats are calling for Joe Biden to step aside. They want to see him end the campaign on his own terms. However, a White House spokeswoman said that there are not conversations like this even happening. Tonight, we'll be diving into the Republican Party and how it's emerging from the RNC and if the GOP will finally get their act together this cycle. Blaze News Tonight starts right now. Welcome to the chaos. I'm Jill Savage. Today is Friday, July 19th, and it's the first RNC where the nominee addressed the assassination attempt against him.
I'm not supposed to be here tonight. Not supposed to be here.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
Yeah. Thank you. But I'm not. And I'll tell you, I stand before you in this arena only by the grace of Almighty God.
That was such a powerful moment from Donald Trump last night. Matthew Peterson is the editor-in-chief for Blaze News, and Danielle D'Souza Gill is a member of the Women for Trump Advisory Board. And guys, let's dive in to what happened last night. Danielle, what are your takeaways from Trump's speech last night?
Oh my gosh. Well, Jill, Matthews, thank you both so much for having me. It was incredible. I think this RNC was honestly one of the most powerful ones the Republican Party has ever had. Trump's speech was so unifying. I think it really did deliver on what a lot of people were expecting and wanting from him, which was to rise above everything. Of course, I think going through the assassination details, he even said himself, he said, I just don't even think I could tell this again because of what I went through and being shot in the head. So I feel like people were just immediately drawn in hearing all about that actual experience at the rally. But I think overall he did an incredible job, and after that, of course, he had a pretty long speech. It was over 90 minutes, and
record amount of time for him.
Exactly, longest ones ever. And so he went into all kinds of issues. But my favorite was honestly the beginning, because I think that just was just so unique.
Matthew?
Well, it was long, but we were here for it, right,
We
Jill?
were all night.
We were here for the whole thing, and we had a great time last night. So appreciate everyone who watched us. It was great. And many people did.
I see you, Donald.
I think that the what you say is right. I mean, it's sort of the day after you look around and look at the aftermath. And what we see is a lot of people, his harshest critics, basically saying, oh, it was long and meandering and boring and low energy at the end. That's the worst they can say. What they're not saying is this is fascist Hitler who's trying to destroy the country. And he was in a position where, if he wanted to, he clearly did not in his deepest of heart of hearts, he could have inflamed the entire country. I mean, what just happened was unbelievable. It put the country on edge, and Trump muted, the conversation in a way. It was still strong. His strength was there, and we were moving forward, and it was pointing forward for the party. But it was not this, it was not the speech of an Adolf Hitler. And I think you can tell that in the critique afterwards. I mean, if the worst they have is, oh, well, it went on for too long, then we're winning.
You want to talk about unbelievable. A big number of tech guys have put their weight behind Donald Trump, but he got an unexpected compliment from someone in Silicon Valley.
I've done some stuff personally in the past. I'm not planning on doing that this time. And that includes, not endorsing either of the candidates. Now, look, there's obviously a lot of crazy stuff going on in the world. The historic events over over the weekend. And on a personal note, it's, seeing Donald Trump get up after getting shot in the face and pump his fist in the air with the American flag is one of the most badass things I've ever seen in my life. But look, it's, and I think, look, it's, at some level as an American, it's like hard to not get kind of emotional about that spirit and that fight. And I think that's why a lot of people like the guy.
Matt, is this real life? Mark Zuckerberg goes out there and actually sounds like Dana White, who introduced Donald Trump. Dana White said the exact same thing about Donald earlier this week, and now it's coming from Zuck.
Something is happening here that can't be stopped. Something is happening here that cannot be slowed down. And so there's an initial natural reaction that anyone has who watches that video. And you could tell Zuckerberg just slipped out of character for a minute, right? He took off the NPC mask and all of a sudden he wasn't a robot anymore. You saw it just kind of come out of him. Like, that was the most badass thing I've ever seen in my life. And then he kind of,
I said that out loud.
It's hard as an American because you have these natural, obvious responses to something like this. But you could see a little bit from Zuckerberg there that was actually likable. He was being a real person. Now, if you're cynical, you might also say he might also be, seeing which way the wind's blowing and thinking, there's a cultural change here, and I'm not going to be on the wrong side of it.
He is usually so robotic, and we didn't see that from him this time.
Yeah, and it seemed like at the beginning he almost didn't say what he wanted to say. He almost was kind of hesitating, like, wait a minute, I know that this is not something I'm supposed to say, and yet every single American, I think, felt that way when they saw that photo of Trump with his fist in the air with the American flag. I think the fact that Zuckerberg is saying it out loud, not just thinking it in his head, shows, like, so many Democrats are in the same situation. So many independents are in the same situation. I think thinking the same thing, thinking, I'm going to rethink Trump. Even though maybe you were someone who was never Trump or whatever it is, you're like, I just can't stop it. It's like Trump said, MAGA is Make America Great Again. How can you stop Make America Great Again? You can't stop it. You can't be against it. At a certain point, you just give into it.
You have to give into it at a certain point because that's the flow. That's what everybody is doing. Like you said, it's a movement that you can't go through and stop. Now, you also can't stop our reporter out there that was at the RNC all week. Chris Bedford is our senior politics editor and Washington correspondent for Blaze News. He's been on with us all week from the RNC, and he had a chance to catch up with Senator Marco Rubio, who had a piece of advice for Republican voters.
Usually the Senate's known for good manners between the members and mutual respect, even when they disagree over politics. But just a few short days after the assassination attempt and after the nomination of Senator Vance, you see colleagues like Senator Chris Murphy coming out and saying he's going to lead to a white, patriarchal, Christian dictatorship. Does that seem like a break from usual Senate procedure? And what do you say for that after the assassination attempt?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm not disputing that he said it. I hadn't seen that quote. Whoever said that, that's an outrageous thing. What you're basically saying is that these people we're not going to have another election in America. It's silly. It's ridiculous. It's stupid. You're basically saying that these people are running an election so they can gain power and then create some sort of dictatorship in America that's only for men at the exclusion of women. They must not have been watching this convention. So it's not stupid, it is irresponsible, because what you're putting in people's minds now is that this is not a fight between two sides that have strong disagreements. This is not even a fight because our argument is we're running against an incompetent administration of Joe Biden, who, by the way, are for ideas that are damaging to our country. But they're arguing these are evil people that are like Hitler and Mussolini, and they're going to be dictators, and we're never going to have an election again, and they're going to take over the country, and they're fascists. That's a totally different argument, and that's the language they use. And they don't just use it like, as you said, this isn't just a handful of people on social media. These are prominent figures in media and in politics that use that rhetoric. So we're happy to tone it down because we've never used that kind of talk. They use it every day. It's kind of part of their play sheet. Biden himself has said it.
They have to get out the vote, I understand, and that seems to be their only campaign message. But Are you worried about Republicans get either overconfidence after the last couple of days of good news for the GOP and their efforts to get out the vote, or has that shifted with the whole with the events of the last week?
Well, I'm not worried about overconfidence to the extent that people aren't going to come out and vote for Trump. You know, what you always worry about, I was saying this to the Florida delegation today, is that they come out and they vote for Trump, and then that's it, they go home. And then they skip the school board and the local offices and the state legislature, because those are important. I tell people, who picks up your garbage? It ain't the federal government. Who's teaching your schools and your public schools? It's not the federal government. Those are state and local officials, and that's really the most important government in America, or should be. It's certainly the most responsive. It's certainly the most influential, and should be, in our system of federalism. And so, what I worry about is that people are not going to finish the ballot and make sure that you're not just voting for Trump, you're voting for Senate, you're voting for Congress, and all the way down that ballot through the local races, because those are very important.
Senator, thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
The local elections are incredibly important. I'm glad that he made that point, you guys. So what can be done if you had to give some people some advice now to get out there and mobilize for these local elections?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we cannot rest on our laurels. I know we're so excited because the RNC was so incredible. Trump is up in all the polls against Biden. We clearly, I think, are going to have a down ballot lift from that. We're going to see, hopefully, a good chance of taking back the House, hopefully taking back the Senate, taking back the White House. But at the same time, I mean, like he was saying, there are so many local races that we have to be involved in, and we cannot let up for a second, because the Democrats, they never let up. No matter what, they have their most ardent activists out there. They're making sure that they reach the most low information voters. They collect every ballot and so on. So we have to be doing the same thing and not just relying on having the best messaging or the most common sense policies or being inspirational. We have to make sure that translates to votes, not just likes on Twitter or views on social media, but that is literally turning into votes for every single person.
Yes, and it's important when you vote. I mean, I love what Senator Rubio says here. You have to understand, you have to know, have someone you trust to tell you how to vote down the whole ballot. Because what he says there is one of the most important things that anyone could learn from the last 3 or 4 years. And I've been saying it for 3 years across the country to all kinds of leaders, so everyone will listen. What I said right after 2020, red states, new tech, and new media. Those are the 3 things you need to focus on. You need new technology. You see movements coming, even like Zuckerberg coming out, people in tech coming out. You see new media. That's literally what I'm doing now. That's why I'm here. We're creating new media right now, and so are all of you watching us by being here, supporting us, and subscribing. And then the third thing is red states. You have to, everything is at the state and local level. So if you don't clean house in your red state, you will lose. And the default, by the way, the default in red states, same problem we have nationally, are a bunch of complacent Republicans who usually are terrible, who have not stopped any of the evils that we complain about nationally in your own state. So you see this happening in Texas, in Florida, where we're cleaning house and actually, enacting, using the power we have in red states to change things, because a lot of it could be changed by Republicans there now. It's just you don't know enough, right, to hold them accountable. And we all need to inform ourselves now and hold them accountable.
Matthew is so smart. You should be subscribed to our YouTube channel and get here all for your Blaze News Tonight information. Go to youtube.com/Blaze News Tonight and hit the bell so you don't miss any of the notifications or new episodes. So don't go anywhere, because when we come back, Senator Marsha Blackburn will tell us how she's going to hold the Secret Service accountable for the Trump assassination attempt. The RNC was filled with a number of unexpected guests, including Secret Service Director Kim Cheatle.
This is exactly what we were doing today
This
on the
was
call.
an
Stonewalling.
assassination attempt. You owe the people answers. You owe President Trump answers.
Audrey, take a left across this plaza to the far corner.
Senator Marsha Blackburn was trying to chase down Cheatle in that clip, and she joins us right now. Senator, thanks so much for joining us. And what were you trying to ask Kim Cheatle in all that commotion?
Yes, thanks for having me. We had a phone call that was really unsatisfactory, and it was with all of the senators. It took place at 3 Eastern time on Wednesday. And I was reiterating some of what we learned and then the questions that were not answered because amazingly, the queue was cut off. We knew there were 5 of us at least in the queue trying to ask questions. We wanted to know, how was it that they knew they had a suspicious person an hour out, identified, lost the person, then found them again, identified them as a potential threat at 5:51, alerted sharpshooters at 5:53, and still at 6 p.m. allowed President Trump to take the stage? We wanted to know why there was no drone surveillance, wanted to know who was responsible for different layers of the perimeter, whether it was the inner, the mid, or the outer. And as I relayed this to some of the Trump team that was there, they said, well, she is here. She's in the building. I told some of my colleagues, I said, well, let's go introduce ourselves, see if we can get a moment with her, ask her our questions, because people want to get some answers. And of course, that's when we went to the suite where she was. She didn't want to answer the questions. She was hosting a reception for what she termed their partners at the RNC. And she felt like it was inappropriate. We offered to move to another space to visit with her privately. She declined that, saying she didn't want to interrupt the reception that was taking place. And then finally, after other conversation, she said she was going to leave. Senator Barrasso and I said, well, we will go with you. And she did not like that. And as you saw, then started to walk very briskly and try to move away from us and not answer the questions.
Senator, I have to ask, why exactly was she there? Is that clear to you? Like, what was she doing at the convention at this reception?
Well, she said it was a reception for the Secret Service partners. I would assume it is vendors and individuals that supply technology or support services to the Secret Service. This is a big event to secure. We're all aware of that. We appreciate the incredible work of the rank and file federal police and different officers, and also the rank and file Secret Service that worked tirelessly on this. There was law enforcement from all across the country. But the point is, we had an assassination attempt on President Trump. We cannot get clarity and answers. There are a lot of rumors that are circulating because we are not able to get specifics. And Ms. Cheatle, unlike other times when you have a disaster of this nature, an event of this nature, generally the law enforcement officers and the lead agency holds a press conference, tells people this is what we know so far. We can't tell you everything. We can tell you some of this, and they make people aware of what has transpired. She has chosen not to do that.
Senator Blackburn, thank you so much for your courage and tenacity in trying to get to the bottom of this. But my question for you is, how long do you think that they will continue to obfuscate the situation, to not reveal so many answers that many Americans are asking? So many people are wondering, how could this have even happened? There was a literal assassination attempt of our leading candidate, former president. If they continue to not answer the questions, to continue to avoid you when you are trying to ask them a question, at what point do we say we have to push for maybe a resignation here or some kind of action moving forward?
She definitely should resign. Definitely. She has one job. It is to keep the protectee safe and to avoid putting them in harm's way. The fact that she has not been transparent, the fact that she has not come forward with information, the fact that she will not answer the questions that senators, this was a group of 4 senators. We were trying to talk with her, and she chose to run away from us. And she had about 6 agents that were with her, protecting her. Probably more than were there with President Trump. But I got to tell you, she owes the American people answers. You know, we tell people all the time, if you see something, say something, please. And there are dozens of people that saw the man on the roof, saw the man with the rifle. They were making videos. They were trying to talk to police. No one did something. They knew at 5:51 they had a potential threat. Somebody made a call to clear President Trump to go on that stage rather than pausing the event, putting him in a car, and then thereby keeping people out of harm's way and away from danger. As a result, we have one who is deceased. And of course, everyone has grieved with the Compatore family over Corey Compatore's death. And then we have 2 that are still seriously injured. We have others and children who are traumatized by this.
Senator Blackburn, what do you plan to do in the Senate to prevent another assassination attempt on a political figure?
Well, what we're going to do, first of all, is have a hearing in Senate Judiciary. We want to get answers. Of course, the House is going to begin their oversight of this on Monday. Then what we have to do is hold the Secret Service to account, making certain that there is a clear advance planning document, that there is a clear operations plan, that all the affiliated agencies, whether it is federal, state, or local agencies, know their area of responsibility, and that the public and the protectee are going to be kept safe.
Senator Blackburn, thanks so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it and all the work that you are putting into this.
You got it. Take care.
A security analyst will tell us the suspicious behavior of federal agencies after the Trump rally shooting when we come back. It's been almost a week since the assassination attempt against Donald Trump, yet we're still missing answers on just how Secret Service let this happen. J. Michael Waller is a senior analyst for strategy at the Center for Security Policy and the author of Big Intel: How the CIA and FBI Went from Cold War Heroes to Deep State Villains. No high-ranking member of the DHS or Secret Service has given us any reason why Thomas Crooks was able to get at Trump. So why do you think that is?
Well, we don't know why. We can only wonder. It's really the FBI as the lead agency to investigate motives and you know all the things to do about the suspect. And the FBI gave a very curious and suspicious statement right away. In the next day after the shooting, saying that none of the evidence they have suggests that, or no evidence suggests that he did anything but act alone. So right away they're jumping to the conclusion that he acted alone, which he very well might have, but the FBI didn't have the evidence then. They didn't get into the guy's phone for quite a while later. DHS and Secret Service are not investigating the way the FBI is, but they're not giving answers either. We know they had that briefing to the Senate saying that and not letting the senators ask questions.
What is the thing that sticks out to you the most, right? If we don't know anything and we're still trying to figure out any explanation, what is the thing that you point at and say, I would really like to have an answer in this area?
The first answer is why wasn't the President Trump, protected when the authorities knew many minutes in advance that there was a suspect or possibly a shooter on the scene? Why was there no obstruction between that roof line and the platform where President Trump was? As would be normal at an event, you'd at least put a tractor trailer or something in front to prevent some line of sight happening. So there are a lot of what ifs about why the Secret Service failed. And then you have to ask, why did Secretary of Homeland Security Mayorkas say he stood 100% behind the Secret Service director who had failed to do her job?
Absolutely. And I have another question for you, sir. What do you make of the videos on social media that show that there were even Trump supporters, people at the rally who were pointing to the man on the roof saying, hey, we noticed something suspicious. So even Trump supporters are almost more protective of President Trump, it seems like, than some of these agencies. So what do they do in that situation, and how can we make sure that we are alert and informing people of what's going on? And how is it that nothing was done at that point?
Yeah, it's really hard to separate incompetence from willful negligence, or even simple negligence or malice. You can't rule out malice. You can't rule out that somebody wanted this to happen. The fact is, we simply don't know. But any police officer, anybody anywhere, when a citizen sees something, they're going to respond and they're going to check it out. In this case, at the highest of high-profile events, this did not happen. So this is one of the main things. The Secret Service is not answering that question. They're not even talking to members of Congress and members of the Senate, and not even allowing them to ask the questions, even though the Secret Service leaders were the ones who gave the briefings to the senators. So Senator Ron Johnson said that they could only ask 4 questions, and there were a lot of questions he was left unanswered.
Michael, it's great to have you on with us. I been looking forward to the day, so I think everyone should check out your book. Very interesting stuff, big intel. My question is, we had Eric Prince on here a few days ago, and I'm just wrestling with this. The Trump campaign and the Trump family seem to be very comfortable with the Secret Service. I mean, they're friends with many of them. There's some incredible people in the Secret Service. But if I was them right now, I would be very uncomfortable with going to public events after what happened, because it's not just incompetence. It's incompetence that's almost unfathomable by many people in that sector. I wonder what you think about the possibility of them going to some third party, or getting a second opinion, or having private consultants. Whether that's ever been done before, I don't know. But certainly in this situation, I have no idea how they could trust their security coming from the government at this point.
Well, no one on earth has a better track record of protecting their people than Eric Prince. When he was with Blackwater, he had a 100% perfection record of protecting the lives of the Americans who his people were there to save. And he got into a lot of trouble for going to unusual lengths to protect Americans. Nobody knows more about security than Eric Prince and his people. Second thing is, the Secret Service began as a private company. It began as the Pinkerton Detective Agency during the Civil War, actually before the Civil War. And President Lincoln said, hey, we don't have our own counterintelligence service against the Confederacy. We don't have so many other things. Let's set up a Secret Service. And it was through the Pinkerton Company that the Secret Service was created. I think it's time really to explore private sector solutions to get the best of the best, like we had with Blackwater, defending 100% of our diplomatic personnel in 2 wars and other places around the world.
Michael, I want to switch gears a little bit with you, because there was another huge story that broke this morning, the CrowdStrike incident. What happened? The cybersecurity incident? How can you break this down for us?
First of all, there are so many things happening so quickly together that it's easy to wonder, are these all being guided by a hidden hand? The fact is, we just don't know. But it's very suspicious, and it's very alarming, really, when you think one private company that has so many high-level political ties and that is part of the woke globalist agenda, all of a sudden should have the systems go down of 18,000 flights around the world, 1,200 in America, ATMs, 911 lines, everything, all because of one flaw in one piece of software of one company that happens to be a woke and globalist, politically motivated company. So it's really alarming. I mean, it's an illustration where we can see just how few people control everything that matters in our day-to-day lives.
And that company is Microsoft. Of course, the easy answer is don't let them have control of everything when we deal with business. But what are some of the things that people might be able to do on a more personal level?
Well, I don't use Microsoft products and I don't use Google products, so that's kind of an easy one. Although a lot of other people that support the products that I use do depend on Microsoft. But this is a case where you have monopolies or oligopolies of very few choices that we have as consumers to protect what we have. And when you have sole source companies like Microsoft, which produce some of the world's finest products, they're also the linchpin when something fails. So imagine if you had just a mistake, an innocent mistake, or you had a foreign spy or a bad actor or a terrorist who was able to do an inside job at a place like Microsoft, then you have the whole world is vulnerable to one single individual hiding behind a computer. So this is really alarming that we don't have redundant systems.
Michael, I want to go back to the assassination attempt. Looking forward, what do you think should be done? I mean, tell us a little bit about what's happening now and whether it looks like transparency is there or not, and what is happening and what should happen moving forward in the next week.
Well, in a case like this, you can't expect the FBI or the Secret Service or anyone to be completely transparent, because these people are hopefully trying to do their jobs and investigate and find out what the problems were and fix the problems and all that they'll ultimately come up with something that's transparent. But the thing is, we can't trust the FBI. The FBI is investigating the assassination attempt of a man who they set up in a fake counterintelligence operation that lasted years, dragged throughout his presidency, and then worked to prosecute him, to throw him in prison. And we find out they've been lying and covering up the whole time and time again. So you can't trust the Bureau anymore, where more or less we used to be able to, more or less. But when you have the FBI and the Secret Service and the Department of Homeland Security refusing to answer specific questions of the very senators who approve their budgets and the very members of Congress who appropriate their funds and who have oversight of them, and they are stonewalling and blocking and limiting their time, saying the senators are wasting their time, in effect, then you have something that smells like a cover-up.
That is the consensus all around, and it's unfortunate that that's where we are. But Michael, thanks so much for your time.
Great to be with you.
One law firm won't let California trans the kids on their watch. Up next. California Governor Gavin Newsom made headlines this week for signing a bill that bans schools from telling parents if their child is undergoing a gender transition. Jacob Hubert is the president of the Liberty Justice Center, which filed a lawsuit to challenge just this. So, Jacob, what does California think that they have the right to withhold this kind of information from parents? Where does that come from?
Well, it comes from this law that they just passed, but it certainly doesn't come from our Constitution or the entire American and human tradition of parents being allowed to raise their own children and being primarily responsible for them. We've always proceeded on the belief that parents love their children. Parents are generally going to do what's in their children's best interest above all else. Parents may not be perfect, but we generally assume that. But this turns that on its head. This says, no, we can't trust parents at all. We can't trust them with information that everybody else is getting about what they're doing at school. And so we're going to ban schools from having policies where they would tell parents if their child is undergoing a social gender transition at school. And it's totally outrageous. It's contrary to the fundamental constitutional right that parents have to direct their own children's upbringing.
So, Jacob, what are you going to do about this?
Well, what we've already done is sued the state to challenge this law on behalf of a school district that wants to be able to give parents this information, and on behalf of parents who would want to know if this was going on with their child at school. We filed that in federal court, and we're arguing that it violates parents' right to raise their own children. It violates their right to free exercise of religion in being able to direct their children appropriately. And it also violates the federal constitution's, a federal law that says that parents have a right to their children's school records.
Do you expect this to eventually reach the Supreme Court? Do you feel like that is the end goal of where this is going to go? Or do you have faith in the courts along the process to kind of decide on this issue, correctly on the side of parents? What do you see moving forward as far as the legal strategy?
Well, I hope it doesn't take a Supreme Court case to set this right. I would hope that the lower federal courts would do the right thing and strike this down. But the certain California officials, Governor Newsom, Attorney General Bonta, seem really fanatically devoted to this cause, if not on their own behalf, on behalf of certain special interests that support them, and have really dug in on this. They already sued before this law was passed to stop the school district we represent from giving parents notice of this sort of thing. And when those legal arguments they were making were shown to be pretty weak, they passed this law. So they have that to rely on. And also Attorney General Bonta goes all over the country filing briefs in lawsuits against parents' rights on this issue. So maybe they're going to dig in. If they do, we're prepared to take it all the way.
Jacob, surely you've seen this week, this became a major issue for many people. Elon Musk and others saying they're leaving California in part because of this. What do you make of that? What are your thoughts about the way in which this law and these policies are so antithetical to many Americans' beliefs about the way things should be, that they're leaving the state?
Well, you can't blame them. The government in California is so hostile to its people's rights and to parents' rights in particular. And so how could you send your child to a public school in California knowing that the school can't tell you this sort of thing, even if it wants to? And then at the same time, of course, you have the state educational officials forcing all kinds of things down on local school districts, putting things in the classroom that the local school board and the local people might not want there, but that the state's political elites have decided they're going to force down their throats anyway. And so when you have that, and then you don't have school choice, so you're stuck in many cases going to your local government school that is pushing all of this stuff, well, what can you do except go somewhere else? But hopefully we can push back against this, and people who can't afford to leave or just don't want to won't be stuck with this.
Jacob, if you're a concerned parent in California or elsewhere, what would you advise them to do to make sure that nothing like this is happening in their schools?
Well, unfortunately, as long as this state law is in place, they can't guarantee this. The school, if it's going to follow the law, is not going to give them this information. But of course, parents can be involved. They can go to school board meetings. They do have a right to go into the school and see what's going on in the classroom, and they should exercise those rights to the fullest if they want to know what's going on. And people who care about what we're doing can support our work.
Thank you so much. And where can they support your work at? Tell them real quick.
At our website, libertyjusticecenter.org.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jacob. I want to now turn to you guys and open up this conversation because you're both parents. What would you react with if this kind of news came down and they said, okay, we're going to just start doing this at school, and your child can change genders and we don't even need to notify you?
No, I mean, this is fight. I mean, this is like the end precipice. I think this is a non-negotiable issue. I think you would absolutely have to do what he's doing, take it up with the law, or you'd have to move or homeschool or something, because you can't just say, okay, cool, I'm going to allow my kid to be put into this kind of situation. I mean, we have to remember they're children, they're kids. They can't make these kinds of decisions. They can't make decisions about sexuality and so on. I mean, that's why we try to make sure they're not in situations where there are child predators and so on. And so I think that you have to absolutely make sure that your child is not in that situation. And ultimately, we do have to change the law in California because most people may not be able to move and get out of that situation.
And Matthew, you brought up Elon Musk in that interview and the fact that he is completely against this and he's so vocally against this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Musk is an example of many people like myself who already left California. I did that 3 years ago, February. So we're done. We're out. Even when I was there, I would never have used the public schools. And if I had to use the public schools, I would have tried to move, homeschooled, or done something different. because of how bad it is. And you simply cannot, as a parent, this happened to Elon Musk's child, right? One of his children, he, by all accounts, blames the system for this kid thinking he was trans. And, that's part of his calculus. He said he's going to move his business because families should not be put in this position where the state is in charge of private aspects of a child's life. It's absolutely insane and ridiculous. And if you don't move because of that, or you don't get your child out of that, I don't know what else to tell you. To me, that's worse than them persecuting me. Let me tell you something else. I was in California this weekend, and I'm driving around, and my Uber driver, very interesting guy, he starts talking, and he starts giving me the secret signals that maybe we're on the same team. And this is someone who was from Africa, who had grown up in Bakersfield in a Christian school. I believe he was Muslim, who was looking to move to Texas because he went to the dentist and his 7-year-old had to be behind locked doors with other grown adults, and he wasn't allowed in there. And that's part of the law now. So there's a certain limit to what you'd think you could do to normal people, and people are going to keep on leaving in droves. We've only begun this sort of national sort.
Danielle, when you look at somebody that is as big as Elon Musk taking this up, what does that mean for this movement as it goes forward?
I think it shows that, well, the entire big tech space is starting to wake up. They're starting to, maybe I wouldn't say necessarily be completely traditionally conservative, but I think they're definitely seeing the common sense behind these issues. I mean, we played the Zuckerberg clip earlier. We're saying this about Elon Musk. I mean, Elon has been pretty outspoken on a lot of issues on X, conservative issues. And so I think that, honestly, I think he actually recently tweeted, or I should say posted on X, that today the Republican Party is basically what I think the Democrats were in the 1980s. Like, the Democrats have become so radically leftist that they're not the liberals of old. The center has basically moved, and so now the right is kind of the old center. And issues like transing children is just beyond, I think, something that most parents, and like even the Uber driver, he's willing to move out of California to Texas. So if he can move to Texas at that point, I think most people can say, no, I'm not doing this.
I think that hope is one of the things that we have lacked on the right for quite some time. Does this story in particular give you hope? No, hopefully it will end the way that we want it to. But with all of the big names that are coming out against it, does that part give you hope?
Absolutely. I think there's so much hope. And as President Trump says, the best is yet to come. I think so many new people are joining the Republican Party and just waking up to these issues, to these horrible things going on. So, no, I think we're going to have so many people, maybe even California, becoming less liberal, honestly, with all the people that are waking up to what's going on. So, yeah, lots of hope.
Matthew, the final word on this.
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of hope, regardless of the election, what is happening and will continue to happen, and regardless of what the ultimate end is, you're going to see more and more, quote unquote, elites who are just about excellence, actually getting things done and looking at reality as it is, defect from the left. They're sick and tired of it. So, in other words, the coalition of the willing who will really resist the Borg, the administrative state, the deep state, is just assembling. And we haven't seen the end of everyone coming together who will ultimately fight against it.
That is very well said. Now, beards could be making a comeback in politics. That is up next. Although Senator J.D. Vance is a straight white male Christian, Mark Hemingway, the senior writer at Real Clear Investigations, says he's still an inclusive VP pick. Here's what he said to our Blaze Media's Chris Bedford.
I'm here with the Federalist's Mark Hemingway, who's an expert on music, an expert on politics, an expert on book, but mostly a man who's got a beard. And we are two men who are rather excited about the prospect of a beard back in the White House. How long's it been?
I think the last guy in a presidential ticket to have a beard was Benjamin Harrison. I think the last guy that had prominent facial hair, Taft had a mustache, I believe.
Taft had a mustache. Yeah, of course, you had Roosevelt and Lincoln, some kind of founders of the GOP. Different eras of the GOP. And I've heard a rumor that Harry S. Truman had a goatee for a small time in 1948. But I can't find any pictures of this anywhere. Like his wife deleted them or something.
Well, that would be a thing to behold because I've never seen. I just can't even imagine. Old historical pictures. Like somebody should use AI to put beards on presidents so we can all wrap our heads around the era.
When I was trying to Google pictures of presidents with beards, I came up with Eisenhower with the beard. That guy had never had a beard. But and a lot of the founding fathers didn't have beards. It's just kind of a new trend in American politics, a return to that Civil War fashion.
I think beards have definitely, are experiencing a rebirth in the last 20 years, just from anecdotally speaking. I'd love to see some data on this, but obviously, to be interesting to see if there is a bandwagon effect of having J.D. Vance in public life, a relatively young, charismatic politician, sporting a beard, whether or not that's going to cause an uptick or not.
Because even Donald Trump was against the beard. And my older relatives are always telling me, shave your face, you look like a woodsman. But the younger people have them, and now that even Trump's come along, described it as Lincoln-esque, maybe we could see a resurgence of masculinity in the White House.
Well, all I know is my wife told me to grow a beard, so I don't know what that says about what I look like underneath this. But if Donald Trump, who has a keen eye for aesthetics, I think we can all agree. I mean, this is a big part of his appeal and his rise, as he coming from television and other things, innately understood the showmanship aspect of politics. Thinks that this is okay for JD, or he senses a vibe shift in the facial hair movement. Then maybe there is something really going on here.
Mark Hemingway, thank you for bringing us the most important trends in American politics.
Glad I could help.
We needed to have a light moment here on a Friday. It's been a big week. It's been less than a week since Donald Trump had assassination attempts. So we are going to talk about beards on politicians. And I think that we have the answer in that clip right there, where Chris Bedford was saying, beards are making a comeback. I don't want to shave, right? He doesn't want to. I think this is a secret ploy to make beards so cool in politics again, Danielle.
Oh my gosh. Well, I like how the interviewee is taking this so seriously.
He is.
He's really analyzing it. And the interviewer is bringing up former presidents and really bringing some gravitas to the beard conversation. I feel like, I guess the most prominent people with beards, Don Jr., I think he makes the beard work. I feel like Eric Trump, I like that he's less beard. So I think it depends on the person, whether or not you go beard or no beard.
Well, Matthew Peterson, I can see right now, no beard.
Yeah, I have a couple things just floating bullet points. One, I really liked when someone said on Twitter that J.D. Vance has Civil War general physiognomy.
Without a doubt.
That's very true, down to the way the structure of his face, everything looked. It's fun. Two, I did notice that his wife seemed to register an implicit discontent with the beard. It was the one thing she pointed out, right? I forget exactly the way she phrased it, but she flagged the beard as if this was something she had to deal with.
Yeah, that she met him. And she said the only thing that's different about him is he didn't have a beard when I met him, and now he does.
Yeah, it didn't seem to me like it was beard approving, but beard tolerant. And the last thing is, someone was telling me that he's actually wrong, that Barack Obama had a beard, and I don't know what that means, but maybe you can tell me later.
I am not going to touch that one with a 10-foot pole, Matthew Peterson. But Danielle, thanks so much for coming in studio and joining us today.
Thank you so much. Definitely loved the beard conversation.
We had to lighten it up. Again, after a president has an assassination attempt, you get to lighten things up on a Friday.
We'll see what happens. Just the general thing is interesting. Maybe we'll see more beards. Maybe not. I don't know. It's all good. I don't really care either way.
It is all good. Now, if you
it's a sign of freedom.
If you like Blaze News Tonight, make sure that you are subscribed to our podcast. Don't forget to rate and review the show. That helps others discover this show because we're brand new. We just started, and we all knew that 2024 was going to be a huge news year. None of us expected it to be this big. That'll do it for us. We'll be back here on Monday.